All right. So if you want to just start by a little about yourself, name, where you grew up, and how everything started rolling.
My name is Dan Rushing, and I grew up in Union County, North Carolina. The county seat is Monroe, North Carolina, and I was born in 1948, so I was growing up during the 50s, and we lived on a little farm that consisted of 34 acres that my parents had bought in 1945, and we raised cotton and milo and corn, and occasionally we bale hay.
Nice. How were these crops planted and harvested?
Well, my parents had bought a new tractor in 1953, so
wow,
they got rid of their mule prior to that.
They got a mechanical mule that time?
Yeah. And so when I was growing up, we spent most of our time in the fields planting cotton, hoeing cotton, and picking cotton.
All right.
We also spent a good bit of time chopping cotton, which is basically just thinning it out. We did the same thing with corn, and we pull corn and would have a corn shucking, which was kind of a social event.
Really?
Yeah.
What kind of livestock did you have? Any type of?
Well, the one thing that we never had that I wanted was a pony. The second thing that we never had that I wanted was a horse.
Right.
But we had plenty of dogs and cats and cows and pigs,
Chickens.
the chickens.
Right.
And we never had any lambs or sheep.
Okay.
But all of the standard things that you needed to make a living. We raised our own pigs and beef for food.
Yeah.
And we had our own garden where we grew all of our vegetables. And my mother would preserve the vegetables at the end of the year,
Right.
either by drying or canning or freezing or all the above.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So what conveniences did they have or not have, rather?
Well, I guess they would come under the heading of necessities, because I remember when we got our first indoor bathroom.
Oh, wow. So what conveniences did you have or didn't have?
Well, one of the most obvious conveniences was the clothesline.
The clothesline.
Yeah, the clothesline meant that we hung our clothes out to dry naturally.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a washing machine inside the house. We actually my mother had a washing machine in a separate building behind the house. And we had to heat the water over an open fire. We had a wash pot, and we'd heat the water in that and then put it into the tubs and do the washing, and my mother would hang it out on the clothesline to dry.
Right.
So it was a huge convenience later on when she actually got a real clothes washer and dryer.
Yeah, absolutely.
And she no longer had to heat the water in a wash pot.
Yeah, I bet that was a big convenience.
The laundry was like an all-day ordeal.
Was it?
Yeah, once a week.
Daily routine on Sunday or something?
Well, typically she would do it on one day during the week.
During the week?
Yeah. But that's when I was a young kid.
So it was early on?
Yeah.
And then it got...
Yeah.
Did you go to church?
Yes.
Growing up?
Every time the door was open.
Every time the door was open? Was that just on Sundays, or was that Wednesdays as well?
No, we didn't have a Sunday school, and we didn't have Wednesday night Bible study or anything like that. But
yeah,
every Sunday we went to church at 11 o'clock, and the service lasted for an hour and a half.
Yeah.
And it consisted of preaching and singing a couple of songs, and frequently we would have dinner on the grounds, which meant that everybody brought a picnic basket and spread the food out on the table, and we'd have a meal and then have church service again in the afternoon.
Oh, wow.
So we'd go to church twice in one day.
Yeah. That's awesome. What transportation got you there and back?
Well, the first car that I remember my family having was a 1957 Ford Fairlane 500 that we drove to church when I was a kid growing up.
Oh wow.
Yeah. And when I turned 16, I bought my first automobile, which was a 1955 Chevy.
1955 Chevy.
Yeah, I paid $300 for it.
Cash, 300 cash
Yeah.
for it.
Yeah.
Brand.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how did you handle like sickness, or when something would happen? And
Well, I can't remember ever getting sick when I was growing up, and I was probably 11 or 12 years old before I went to the dentist for the first time. I was always extremely healthy, and
that's awesome. Good.
the only thing I recall going to the doctor for was some kind of shot that school required.
Yeah.
I think it was either measles or mumps. We had a vaccination for that, but it was pretty rare that I went to the doctor.
Yeah. Well, good. That's awesome. That's really good. Is there any special event besides your first car that you bought that you remember distinctly?
Oh yeah, I remember.
Jump out at you.
One of the scariest things that ever happened was my cousin and my sister and I were out in the yard, and my cousin and I were playing baseball.
Yeah.
And I was throwing the baseball, and he was hitting it, and my sister was out watching us, and I gave her strict instructions to stand behind the tree.
Right.
So she wouldn't get hit by a baseball.
Did she stand behind the tree?
Well, for a little bit, and then she stepped out behind the tree, and at just the instant she stepped out behind the tree, I threw the fastball, and my cousin hit it, and the baseball hit my sister in the chest and knocked her out cold.
Oh, really? Out cold?
Yeah, and I thought she was dead.
Yeah, I would have thought she was dead too. Wow. That was how old?
I was probably 14. She was.
Okay.
I may have been as young as 12.
Yeah.
She was like 4 years younger than me, but it was like scary. And I remember praying that God would let her live.
Yeah.
And of course, in a few minutes, she recovered.
I think the last question I have for you is, do you prefer